Hello there and welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be having a look at the classic Knockabout, directed by Sammo Hung and starring Yuen Biao, also starring Brian Leung, otherwise known as Lung Kao Yan, as well as Liu Kao Weng. Made in 1979, and obviously it's wonderful. One of the quotes I always remember from Jackie Chan's autobiography, that he said from the moment like Yuen Biao walked into the Chinese Peking Opera School, Yuen Biao was very talented. Like it was obvious he was gifted right away. There was not much Yuen Biao couldn't do. Obviously the Chinese Peking Opera, where Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Yuen Biao, Yuen Wah, they all met, learnt their skills. But Yuen Biao, even in Jackie Chan's own words, was straight away very gifted. You know, like he says, like this kid, he was an absolutely amazing acrobat in Yuen Biao, and amazing, terrific performer. Sammo Hung, being the big brother of the academy and all his brothers, he helped a lot of his fellow pupils get work and a foot in the door in regards to the Hong Kong movie industry. If you look at Sammo Hung's body of work, he was always trying to help others get in, or like his brothers get into the industry, helping them, directing them in various vehicles, fight choreographing different films, really helping them getting their foot in the door in regards to getting a career, most notably at Golden Harvest. After Jackie had become like a huge hit with with Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, and when he went to Golden Harvest with Young Master, it's only natural like Golden Harvest was sort of looking for their next big thing, like who can they put forward next. Sammo Hung had already sort of established himself at this point. It was obvious he was very talented, having like a few films under his belt at this point. So Golden Harvest set their sights on Yuen Biao. Rightly so. They were looking for their next star. It was only natural they were looking for their next performer to get box office results. And Yuen has such a great smile, and that was part of the charm with Yuen. I mean, Sammo knew him well. He had trained with him, so he could direct him easily. This is one of the great things with Knockabout that you do pick up, because Sammo understands and Yuen Biao understands. Like they know how each other works, and they know what each other is capable of, having, like I say, learned together, grown up together, that kind of thing. I'd imagine it was very easy and Yuen Biao obviously felt comfortable with Sammo directing, and it was a match made in heaven between the two, and it's an absolutely phenomenal kung fu movie. If you've never seen Knockabout, please check it out. It's absolutely incredible. This was Sammo's fifth film as a director, I believe, where he plays sort of the beggar character, made popular, of course, in films such as Drunken Master with Beggar So, Simon Yuen doing the old Sam Seed thing. Worth noting that Yuen makes every flip, kick and move in this film look so easy, which he does with such style, and really is... I mean, if you've got a film where you're seeing Sammo Hung and Yuen Biao at their sort of, not necessarily, at their best, at their peak, I mean... This is, like I say, Yuen Biao's maybe first starring lead role, and it is incredible. You're seeing these two at their most, like just giving everything in every fight scene, even just like I say with the comedy, just everything is here. And this was, like I say, with Sammo behind the helm, at the helm behind the camera, it just works. This whole film just really does work. So Yuen Biao and Brian Leung play sort of street hustlers, not against sort of conning people or pulling the odd swindle. It starts with them doing like a hustle with this like fake gold bar that they take to Peter Chan to get valued. If you watch that opening scene with Peter Chan, if you look at his hair, at one point, 1 minute it's got oil in it, and 1 minute it's totally different. Again, where I've seen this movie so many times, I mean, I first watched this when I was about 12 years old. If you watch the opening scene, I always still remember, because I've seen it so many times, I pick up these little things. But his hair changes from like having oil in it to no oil. Total pointless me telling you that, but it's just something, if you do see it, just notice that opening scene. So Peter thinks they are like sort of stupid and they're not all there, so he tries to rip them off and gives them less, unaware that the bar is actually a fake. Carl Macker also makes an appearance in this as a cop. Carl Macker you'll probably mostly remember from sort of Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon, starring Sammo and directed by Liu Kao Weng. Usually them three were very tight, good friends that made 2 or 3 good movies together. So after getting one over on the guy and getting some money, they start to share their money they made. And I love Yuen Biao here throwing, like I say, because they're sort of hustlers and they're sort of they're not even against sort of hustling each other. Like Yuen Biao's sort of the leader, and like they're sort of counting their money, but Yuen Biao's sort of throwing it at Lung Kao Yang, and so he's having to catch it, and while he's turning his back, Yuen Biu's pocketing like more of the money. Which is, just shows off the characters, even more, just like how much, they're not even worried if like they con the other person a little bit. So they go to like this casino. Sam at one point switches the bag. He's like sort of beggar character. And I love when the fight breaks out, the casino boss, he would much rather beat them up than continue actually gambling. He'd much rather, he's got like his casino, he's like the room is totally packed out. And rather than escort them outside or, beat them up outside, he just would much rather just everybody stop gambling, stop, placing your bets and everything. It just gives us time to beat these two people up. But it's good because it allows for an action scene. It allows for a fight sequence. Wouldn't he lose profits? So I love Lung Ka-yan here copying Yuen Biu's moves, even when actually he's even getting beaten up. Lung Ka-yan, some people call him Brian Lung, some people even call him Beardy. He's known by several different names. I sometimes switch it up. You may notice throughout the review I might call him Brian Lung, then I might call him Lung Ka-yan. So it just depends, but it's the same person, just in case you're getting confused. So next day they sort of steal some fish, and we meet Liu Kao Wing's character, which they try to plant a ring on him. So it's sort of yet like another scam that they're going to do. They attack him and get beaten up. If you look at the dynamic here between Yuen Biu and Brian Lung, how different it is to say a film like Dreadnought, which I reviewed previously. These are the same people, but if you look at the dynamic and the characters they're playing here, Dreadnought was like 2 years later, I believe, 2 or 3 years later. But if you look at Lung Ka-yan and Yuen Biu here, it's totally different. Just the performances, not as I say, regardless of the kung fu, regardless of the martial arts, forget the fight sequences. If you look at the characters they're playing here, something that's often very understated in terms of like, especially old school kung fu movies. If you look at the difference here between this and say Dreadnought, where it has got the two people, totally different performances, and real credit to the pair of them, for giving very sort of polar opposite characters here. Proving their actor skills. So naturally they want him to like Liu Kao Wing to be their master. They start following him. Funny scene where Yuen is like using his body so Liu Kao Wing can cross, and like Brian Lung starts jumping up and down on his back, like saying, what's the problem, and he's sort of balancing on Yuen Biu's back. It's really really funny scene. Watch out for that because it always does tickle me. So eventually he starts training them. Lung Ka-yan, he's training in fists, and Yuen Biu he's training in leg work. So eventually they start to get good. They start to get sort of the whole idea of the film is that they stress points like they're better than ordinary people. Like the average Joe in the street, the average person would be no match for them. So they want to test their skills. They've been sort of trained up now. They're feeling a bit confident, a bit cocky. They think, okay, we got some skills. And they go and test their skills, like I'd say, against ordinary people. And of all the places they go to, they go back to the casino that they've already got a reputation like for cheating and being like a complete pain out anyway. So they go back to the casino. You have to love how that, like I say, they've got the balls to go back, and where they get caught cheating. And after the fight breaks out here, if you watch it, there's a scene in this bit where Yuen Biu does 5 consecutive sort of perfect sort of side roundhouse kicks, absolutely flawless in execution, absolutely spellbinding what he does with his leg work. Yuen Biu is a fantastic kicker. He's a fantastic kicker, but here it really does you really get to see quite a lot of Yuen Biu's sort of footwork here. Perfect, as I say, 5 consecutive perfect, might even be more than 5, but I think it's 5 consecutive roundhouse side kicks. Really, I say, incredible, amazing stuff. Also, bit where I like where some guys are sort of flying into frame. Like these guys are sort of jumping into the frame of the camera. You're not sure sort of what's happening, like where they're coming from. Then suddenly Brian Lung comes into shot. But it's just funny the way they sort of just come piling in front of the camera. Really, truly, as I say, truly amazing leg work in this scene from Yuen Biu. Around this time, we see Sammo. We haven't really seen Sammo much up to this point, so we haven't really seen him since the beginning of the movie, and he eventually sort of steals their money. Then we have Lee Hoi Sang, who is looking for their master. He's looking for Liu Kao Wing's character, and he arranged to meet them at a forest with Biddy and Yuen Biu taking on 7 dwarfs. That's his character's name, not actually 7 dwarfs. That's his character's name. Again, I watched this I've always watched this film subtitled. I think I've only seen. Well, I think initially, in the day, it was the classic dub that I watched, but by and large now, as I say, I watched it recently again, subtitled. It's around this point that the movie properly gets going. This is where the film really does talk, because like with a lot of old school kung fu movies, they do sort of, they kill time sometimes for the first 30-40 minutes until the plot actually gets going. Usually it's something that happens in the market or something that happens with somebody's master, and not usually necessarily all the time a lot happens, especially in sort of the light-hearted kung fu movies. I mean, it is the plot sometimes with some of the movies doesn't kick in or get going to about the 50-minute mark, but this is around this point, as I say, the film actually gets going. And what the whole film is building to. Leroy Say in this scene getting some proper bruises on his head, and I mean a lot. And we also learn that Lau Kar-Weng's character is sort of a savage killer. He is a real brutal killer. He's not, as I say, he's not a kung fu master to be taken lightly. Mars also makes an appearance in this, who many of you will remember from sort of films like Project A, Police Story, probably most notably from Dragon Lord. He makes it where I say Yuen witnesses Lau Kar-Weng killing Mars and realizing what he really is, and like that he is a murderer, and sort of Lau Kar-Weng basically they discover he's a master and he wants to sort of kill them basically for discovering out the truth. That's sort of the bulk of why he suddenly turns, because he's a kung fu master, and once they find out he sort of killed somebody and he's killed, he wanted it to be kept secret, but Yuen Biao was actually there and he didn't know he was there. Therefore, he wants to kill Yuen Biao now because he's like, I can't let this get out. This guy. I mean, this guy's a savage guy. Lau Kar-Weng's character is a savage guy. Lau Kar-Yan actually sacrifices himself so that Yuen Biao can escape. So Brian Leung actually dies in this movie. You expected like the two to sort of get vengeance together. But I think with that, what that allows to do, because like Lau Kar-Yan was not actually a trained kung fu performer in real life. He was very good. I think Sammo said once he was exceptionally good at just copying and just remembering and just getting the moves down exactly right, and that's why Sammo Hung worked with Lau Kar-Yan so many times. But what this allows is it allows Yuen Biao to come forward. It allows him to take centre stage, and it gives him that sense of vengeance and revenge that the plot standard that so many kung fu movies go to. So up until this point, as I mentioned, it's been sort of goofing around, and suddenly it has got serious. So now Yuen Biao is back on being poor and homeless, and it comes across like Sammo's beggar, and it sort of steals his chicken, which Sammo gets paid back by making him like drink vinegar, chili sauce, and then ends up making him also, without realising it, drink the water that he was actually washing his feet with. So you stole my chicken. Sammo gets some payback on Yuen Biao here. Of course, we all know Sammo. We know Sammo's going to take him as his student. We know at this point Sammo's going to take him, and train him up. The first thing you see, there's some great training in this movie, some really good training. First thing you see is Sammo puts Yuen's got these like splints, these wooden like sort of splints on the back of his legs, like sort of behind his knees, and he starts doing like backflips with these sort of sharp splints in the back, and every time when he does a backflip here, I do cringe, I do wince a little bit, because you can feel like if you did that, the amount of pain that would feel just having to sort of keep your legs straight, and it always makes me wince, that first part of the training sequence, doing consecutive backflips. Like I said, I could watch Sammo and Yuen Biao train all day together. If Knockabout was like 3 hours long, say it was an epic 3 hour long movie, and it was just Sammo Hung and Yuen Biao training together for that 3 hours, that's all I need. That would have been good enough. But as I say, these training sequences in this movie just couldn't. I didn't want them to end. They could have just kept going. Just so damn entertaining and just so amazing watching these two skilled performers. I would love it if it just, like I say, even if it was like 2-3 hours long. Really see Yuen Biao doing his magic here with the flips, etc. Then they do like this stamina training, which involves like a skipping rope, which gives more and more impressive as it goes on. Even like I say, Yuen Biao at one point on his back, Sammo's using the skipping rope, flipping as Yuen Biao's trying to flip himself up, and it really does allow Yuen Biao to get across his acrobatic skills and his flips, and just what he can do. And just again, like I say, just amazing training. Like not all necessary training sequences in kung fu movies are sometimes they can be sometimes wasted opportunities unless they're fun. You know, like Drunken Master is really fun. This one is really fun as well. It really does. You do get you're not worried about you could just watch it all day. You're not worried about the film. Getting the vengeance at this point. It's like, let's just watch some more training scenes. So eventually Yun spots like his ex-master Liu Kar-wing, who he wants to get vengeance on, in the street. And the fight just begins. It's not like he sort of goes out, right, I'm going to go get him now. He sort of just clocks him in the street. And the fight begins, which eventually leads to like a tea house, which is something that they always usually fight in. It's usually a tea house or a restaurant. If you remember in particular, like the tea house fight Encounter of the Spooky Kind, there's always a tea house rumble. There's usually a tea house showdown, and Knockabout is no exception. And the great thing is, as well, with the end fight, it's not just Yuen Biao versus Liu Kar-wing. It's Sammo Hung and Yuen Biao versus Liu Kar-wing. So, and it is probably one of the, if not the best 2 versus 1 fight scene I've ever seen. As I say, I saw this film years ago. I've seen it many times, but to me, even watching it again recently, that end fight, it still holds up. It's still one of the best 2 versus 1 fight sequences I've ever seen. Not just in kung fu movies, but just in general. It's just absolutely just phenomenal. Really is phenomenal. The speed, the energy is absolutely incredible and just off the chain, with both of them sort of using monkey style, using tables, chairs, flips, even the roof comes into play. They're sort of climbing on the roof as well. Really both showing off and looking amazing. What a fight. I mean, look no further than Yuen Biao doing like multiple backflips on like this really small table, just doing continuous backflips. And the great thing is, like I mentioned, it allows Sammo to shine as well. It's not just showing off Yuen Biao. It's like, let's really show the audience here what you and me can do, and Liu Kar-wing as well, fantastic as always, as the villain here with the choreography. I say, just climbing up on the roof and both flipping off each other, just so much stuff going on with this fight sequence. I mean, I could probably dedicate a whole video just to that end fight, and sometimes it's forgotten about in people's favourite end fights, like regarding Sammo or Yuen Biao. But if you've only seen Knockabout a couple of times, or you've never seen Knockabout, just watch the end fight, because it's just, like I say, it's just off the chain, incredible. So they eventually overpower him, fighting him whilst using like a prickly vine as like a skipping rope. And just to add to the plot at the end, after they finish him, for no reason whatsoever, it turns out that Sammo is a private. Like, he was undercover, and he was a detective tasked with bringing him down. And worth noting as well, regards to the choreography, Lam Ching Ying was also one of the fight choreographers, as like mainly known, due to Prodigal Son and Mr. Vampire. But absolutely, as I say, incredible film. Can't say enough about this movie. It's definitely, you're not going to say any film where you got Yuen Biao, Sammo Hung working together, and a great supporting cast with Mars, Lung Ka-yen, Liu Kar-wing, really incredible stuff. So if you've never seen Knockabout, watch it, because it does take a while maybe to pick up steam. It really does. It's not like the film drags, but in regards to sort of kung fu and fights, it does take a little while to get going. It's very sort of slapsticky at the start, as a lot of films tend to be, but once it gets going and the training happens, and once the plot actually starts progressing forward, you're in for a hell of a ride. And the end fight just more than makes up for it, and it's just an exceptional piece of kung fu cinema. So thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.